Welcome to this episode of Eye of the Swarm, your deep dive into anything and everything related to Yellow Jacket athletics. He is the big sound Matt Johnson. I am Jon Garver. Season number 6, episode number 14. Season number 6 winding down.
It is. We're into the home stretch now of the spring season, and the weather has been relatively cooperative.
We've had to make a schedule change every single weekend so far this spring. So, I mean, how do you say cooperative?
Relatively cooperative. That's what I think I was trying to get to. That's what I think I was trying to get to that point. Relatively cooperative. Because we've had other years that have been complete washouts. Yes. Let's be honest about this. So we have had years in the past where nobody played at home. Or basically almost
2012.
Nobody. Yeah.
Baseball team didn't have a single game at home.
Yeah, they were literally a traveling baseball team, and didn't technically they had home games.
They wanted to make like concert T-shirts with all the different places.
Well, and that was the year that you had to go down to Whitewater, right?
Correct.
That was and score it. Mm-hmm. That was fun. Had to travel to Whitewater to play a 7-hour trip to play a home game.
Four of them.
Yeah, and then we had to pack up the entire sports information department and go down there because it was our home game, so we had to do that.
Yes.
But, yeah, we're getting down to the home stretch here. Both the baseball and softball teams are now in the midst of in the thick of their respective conference seasons, as the saying goes. Same thing with tennis. Mm-hmm. It's interesting that golf is going to be in action this coming weekend, and then track and field are also right in the thick of it right now. So everybody's kind of coming right down to the wire here, and there's going to be a lot of positioning in the conference and for conference tournament invites to be determined here in the next couple weeks.
Yeah, it gets pretty hairy here, and thinking about that baseball schedule. We talked about it when TJ was on a couple weeks ago. It's so bizarre that their first 3 weekends, all at home.
Yep.
And somehow you get all those games in March.
Yeah.
Somehow, some way, again, with schedule changes. But all their home series in March, they have one left.
Yep.
Which is insane. And then you don't see the softball team for a calendar year before they finally get to play at home.
Yeah, and then it's all bunched up. Like I said, 3 here, 3 there, 3 there. They do have a few coming up this weekend. Mm-hmm. Softball's back home again this weekend.
Schedule change, though.
It's supposed to be, as we record this on a Wednesday, we were supposed to have a single game on Thursday and then 2 games on Friday. Instead, we're going to have 2 games on Friday and 1 game on Saturday. So that's going to be a switch. If you need more information, go to uwsyellowjackets.com for more on that. Mm-hmm. Baseball on the road taking on Morris this weekend. So softball will be home.
Against Morris as well.
Against Morris. Women's track and field has a split squad situation going right now for the weekend, which is kind of...
Well, the men do too.
Yeah.
They have one guy running today.
Okay.
Yeah. Just one. So
multis
one guy running one event all the way across the state.
Yep, and they're going to be split between Mankato and La Crosse all weekend. So they're going to be a lot of UWS.
And today they're in Appleton.
So, yeah, there's a lot going on there. That's a lot of miles right there. That's a lot of miles right there. Tennis is at home this weekend. On Saturday, they're taking on Northwestern. That's the big match for them because if they
That's on Friday.
That's on Friday?
That's on Friday.
Okay, it's on Friday because that's the big match for them because if they win that one, then they put themselves in the driver's seat to win another UMAC crown.
Correct.
And golf.
But that one's weather dependent because Northwestern is the team that refuses to play indoors here.
Yeah.
They don't like the surface, so they won't play indoors. So this one will be outdoors or
it's supposed to be kind of chilly. Are we supposed to get any precip, though?
Tomorrow, on Thursday, we're supposed to, but I don't know what Friday looks like. I tend to not look at the weather report too often and just let the coaches come in and tell me what's happening.
Yeah, and then the golf, of course, has the Lake Forest Spring.
Yeah, they're going down to Lake Forest.
Yeah, to play in that tournament. So a lot of stuff coming up here this coming week. Everybody did pretty well. Softball's rolling right along at 22-5, and one of the top teams in the country in offense.
Yeah,
hitting close to 420, which is in the top five in runs scored, runs per game.
I don't think this ever happened either. You gave me a look the other day.
Yeah, I wasn't quite. Well,
I can't tell you the last time, if ever, they've batted over 400 for a season.
Not as a team. Not that I can remember. I mean, there's been a lot of high 380s over the years, but I've never seen. I don't think
even in the national tournament years.
Okay,
you go all the way back to the teams that won the WIAC. They weren't over 400.
Yeah, so that's interesting. Baseball bounced back from a tough weekend against Crown. They won 3 in a row against North Central. So they're playing better. Scored 25 in their last one, 26 actually.
26
in their last win over North Central.
52 runs in 3 games.
Yeah, that'll do it.
And what did they? How many home runs?
I don't know. I kind of lost.
I was say it was really like 15 or 16 home runs they hit in the 3 games.
Well, they've got power in that line.
I mean, they do have power. Yeah. Granted, the ballpark I think was like 247 feet to straightaway center.
That's
or something like that. So it was a little bit of a bandbox.
Yeah.
And you asked TJ, how many are legitimate? And you figured probably about 3/4 of them. There was a couple of fence scrapers in there, but about 3/4 of them he said were legitimate long balls.
Well, that's good.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. I didn't get a chance to see much of it just because I had other responsibilities. But yeah, so the teams are doing well. Both men's and women's tennis are undefeated in the league. They both beat Martin Luther and Crown in doubleheader action on Saturday. So, like I said, their big one is coming up on Friday with Northwestern. So, everybody's in good position right now, though, in terms of conference tournament stuff, potential conference champions. And there's a few more weekends left in the year. There's a couple of non-conference games in there also for both baseball and softball. But, yeah, we're coming right down to the end of it here.
Mm-hmm. I mean, look at the calendar. You're like a month away from commencement.
Pretty much, yeah.
Where did this one go?
Yeah, it seems like it goes faster each year.
It does. Yep. It absolutely does. So anyway, for regular viewers, you see our background is much different. And Holden, you could have at least given us something on the whiteboard back here.
We could have put Eye of the Swarm up on the whiteboard,
something.
maybe.
So the reason it looks different here, we're on location. We're in a classroom setting today as we have is it Com 330, Tom?
Yeah.
Yes, the Communications 330 multimedia journalism class is in attendance, and
We do it every semester.
we do it every semester. Well, we try to. We don't always.
We don't always
we're not always
succeed, but-
successful, but we try. And at some point here, we'll be able to turn the mic on for them, and they'll pepper us with questions, and we'll see what all the good stuff that they're going to throw at us because. Tom, the professor, made sure that they came prepared this time.
Yes, he did.
So.
He sent us an email letting us know. So
Yeah,
yep.
so looking forward to that part of it. But at any rate, we'll take a quick timeout. We'll come back. Mr. Hansen will jump up front with us, and we will continue with the question and answer, the round table, even though it's a trapezoid table. It's not even a round table.
Yeah, it's a trapezoid.
Yeah, trapezoid. So we'll continue with the trapezoid segment of this episode. You are watching Eye of the Swarm.
Find your passion. Find your people. Find your purpose. Find your superior.
We're back on the roundtable segment of this episode of Eye of the Swarm, and we're happy to be joined by Professor Tom Hansen, who is no stranger to anybody in the Twin Ports, who has probably been to, watched, listened to, read about any kind of sporting event that has happened here over the last 3 decades or so.
You're too kind. Thank you.
Yeah.
Grandma's Marathon, we worked together.
We
of course.
did. We did
Grandma's
some.
Marathon.
Did a few marathons together.
Yeah.
Not running them, of course, but
No.
No.
Although
I think you did
ran
run one, didn't you?
did.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you did. I didn't
was it
remember you
running
ran
or
one.
was it speed walking?
6.5 hours. You get a medal for that. I only found out that I had a fractured foot at the when I did that. I knew there was when I got to the starting line, I knew that my foot did not feel good. And so I had 2 choices. I'm up in 2 harbors at the starting line. Do I just bail now or do I try to gut it through? So it was more of a run, walk, pace myself. I did know that at 7 hours, they cut off the timing. So I knew if I could get there before 7 hours, I'd still get the T-shirt and the medal.
You mean to tell me Bob Gustafson wouldn't give you a shirt and medal?
The inspiration was the ambulance kept circling behind, and they never had to pick me up. So
You weren't last.
no.
So there you go.
Nope. My family was anxiously awaiting for
I have a
6.5
question though
hours.
about that because I think was that the year also that you played at the alumni golf with basically a broken foot too?
Yes.
That was
Yeah.
that same year. Okay.
I didn't, and here's how not smart I am. I didn't go to the doctor till the state fair, and I couldn't keep up with my family at the state fair. So between all of that, I realized that
That was 3 months apart.
I remember though at the alumni
I
golf.
had a hip. That one was a hip.
Okay, because I remember
and knee.
at alumni golf, like I was watching the teams come through, and he was like barely able to walk, and he's still getting to the tee and hitting the ball, and I'm like, I don't know if Hansen's
I
going to make
did
it.
go to the doctor on that one.
Yeah,
too. Yeah.
because I was like, I don't know if Hansen's going to make it. Like this is not good, and it's like
I'm not
95
the
to 100
prime
degrees that day.
athlete like you guys were.
I wouldn't call myself.
Yeah, exactly.
You played Division III athletics.
I was a fourth line
You played
grinder,
Division
man.
III athletics. I was cut from college baseball team and basketball team. Deservedly so, by the way.
Okay.
Deservedly. Hey, but I
Deservedly
made the baseball team all the way to the last winter cut, and then I got the axe.
Were you there strictly for numbers then at that point?
Probably.
We want an
probably.
even
I could
number
at
of
least
players
make
here.
contact with the ball and knew the fundamentals defensively.
We
And
need
then they
one more
realized
guy
that
to make sure
Tom
everyone
can't
has
hit a
partner
curveball.
playing catch.
I mean, Winona
Tom
State didn't
Cantor.
want you on the team anymore. What the heck is going on here? How could they not want?
They
Tom
turned me
Hansen
into
on
the
team?
broadcaster, so I broadcast games for 4 years.
that worked
so
out pretty well
that
for you
actually
then.
did.
Yeah, it
So
did.
I learned a lot.
That's a good segue.
I learned for 4 hours how to talk on the air by myself. So yeah, it was a good learning experience. I didn't learn it at the time, but as I went on in my career, it was a great experience.
Was that kind of the first taste that, this is absolutely what I want to do?
Radio. I wasn't going to do anything in TV. I loved radio. I loved telling stories, the ability to do it literally for hours, as you two know. And the TV thing just kind of happened by happenstance. So, that definitely where it was. Yeah, I was the sports director. Long story short, I had a talk show at the school, and Donnie Mulhern was one of the hosts back in the day, the longtime UWS
Swapped messages
coach.
with him yesterday.
Oh, did you really?
I did.
How's he doing? Does anyone know?
Sounded fine.
Okay.
Seemed fine.
I'm
Good.
I'm a little worried about him.
He was in good humor on the text
Was
message.
he?
So
Okay.
yeah.
Well, I'm glad that he's doing better.
I was thinking about going to a buffet soon, and maybe I will in his honor.
Gonna channel your inner Don Mulhern.
And go to an old country buffet, OCB, and
I don't think they don't exist.
they don't
anymore,
exist
though.
anymore. But that was like his thing.
Oh,
yeah.
We
that
had
was
many
his thing.
discussions. So, that was it. And then doing radio, they needed somebody to do weekend weather at the TV station. And next thing you know, Tom, you got weekends off? And I said, well, yeah, I do. That's when I was going to school
you
here.
don't anymore.
I was going to school here full-time. I had a full-time job. I was the grad assistant at WSSU at the time. And I said, well, yeah, I could do the weather at 10 o'clock. And that began the TV side of things that I never envisioned. And then after a couple of years of that, the news director said, well, Tom, we've got a couple openings. One in news as a news reporter or sports as a sports director. Which one would you be interested in? I waited like a nanosecond, and then I said sports. So the rest is history. Yeah.
You were WDSM first, correct?
WDSM news reporter that eventually became news director.
710 on your AM dial,
correct.
everybody.
What was it? Best country in the city or something like that? Best country in the city.
I think that's what it was.
One of their slogans, which is now Sports Talk, I think. 710.
It's where you listen to the Wild games. I know that for a fact.
Yeah, and the Packers games and Badgers games. Yep. Yeah, so WDSM radio, and then from there it was TV, and next thing you know, here we go.
Here you are. How long in TV?
Full-time 23 years.
Okay.
Still there, so at 35 years. Doing some college play-by-play, producing basketball, football, volleyball, hockey, all the play-by-play. The play-by-play stuff I really enjoy because, as you two know, and I don't have to tell you, the game starts, the ball goes up in the air, the puck drops. You have no idea what's going to happen in the next 2 to 3 hours. And it's your job to help tell that story. And you can prepare with stats, background, some information, and as you both know, you don't use half of it once the game starts. Or in some cases, you've used all of it by the end of the first quarter.
Right.
Or the end of the first period. So that's what I love, the storytelling as it's happening. That's reality TV to me.
In the TV world, because when I was growing up and you watch a Marsh Nelson go, that's the best job in the world.
Yep.
It's the hardest job.
Yeah.
It is such a difficult job. The late nights, always having to be
Holidays,
on deadline,
weekends.
the holidays, the weekends, everything.
Yep.
It takes a toll, doesn't it?
Without a doubt. And my wife, I keep crediting my wife because she was very supportive of that. Obviously a former Yellow Jacket student athlete, softball player herself, and a coach. So she knew the rigors, if you will, of that schedule. Wasn't always easy for the girls. I would see sometimes the girls, for years, I'd see them on Sunday, wouldn't see them again until Friday, and then because of the school schedule and my work schedule, but it worked out great. Fantastic, 2 great daughters, and my wife is now retired, and I've been very, very blessed, very, very fortunate.
So you've been now at the university for a dozen years?
Right? Yeah, right on the money. Yeah, 2013, and now 2025. So yeah, 12 years, and started at University Relations. Telling the stories about the students, faculty, staff, alumni. Loved it. Had an opportunity to teach a class, and
now all you're doing is teaching classes.
Then, Tom, can you teach another class? Tom, can you teach another class? And so yeah, I love it now, and full time in the CMT. So it's Communication, Media, and Theater now.
Oh.
We just underwent a name change for the department.
Okay.
Communicating Arts, and now in the future moving forward, Communication, Media, and Theater.
So what classes are we teaching?
This is Com 330. So this is multimedia journalism. So in this case, we've brought them to the radio station, KUWS, which of course was WSSU, and at least in my day. And then the TV studio. They're doing newscasts. They're doing storytelling. We went to the National Girls and Women's Sports Day, which the class did a story on. So we've done to sporting events. So I try to get them involved in radio, TV, podcasts as much as I possibly can. A general news reporting, so an introduction to news reporting, if you will, introduction to journalism, Com 203. And some of those stories actually wind up in the Promethean student newspaper. And then this is the other class, is Com 403, experiential learning. And that one is literally where they can do TV. So we have students doing Promethean TV newscasts, Promethean podcasts, the online content for the student newspaper. 105 years old. So as you two know, as former students here, it's just a voice for the students. The students have an opportunity to not only cover what's going on campus, but get information out about events and Student Government Association and things like that. So
if you go way back into the archive, you'll find some of the
Jon
stuff
Garver.
that I wrote. I got a couple bylines in that fish wrap back in the day, and I look back at some of that and go, wow, you were an awful writer.
Yeah. But that's all you cut your teeth though.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah,
That's how you got to do it.
And you learn
Yeah.
the deadlines, right? You
Yep.
learn the deadlines,
Working on
the
deadline.
interviewing, things
Yep.
like that. It was still the Promethean. It was you weren't the Peptimus staff, were you?
No, it was Promethean.
Promethean.
Yep.
And then it was a Stinger.
Then it was the Stinger for a little while.
the magazine style.
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. And then it went back to Promethean. That was quite the controversy too when they decided to make it the Stinger. You know, because it was that time when everything had to be related to buzzing and stinging and all that stuff.
right,
So
yeah.
naturally, we have to change the name of the student publication as well.
Oh, right,
And
yeah,
we
yeah.
had to go Stinger, and then they decided, well, it's going to be a magazine style now. It's
Oh,
not going
okay.
to be a newspaper. And then I believe for a time, correct me if I'm wrong, it was just digital.
Okay.
They weren't actually even printing anything. It was just a digital offering, and then back to actually being
105
a
years.
newspaper again.
And it was highlighted in the Positively Superior magazine.
You're the first guest that's ever brought his own props.
This is new for us. We're not used to
105
having.
years. So this is a tradition that we're going with. Yeah. But yeah, first guest. First guest
that's
that
ever
brought
brought
props?
Let's bring actual props. Yes.
There's too many pictures.
Well, you got to remember, for the
advisor,
first 4
but-
years of this, it was an audio only,
right.
so it didn't matter.
That's true.
if
So it didn't even matter because we were up at the studio. And
the one person who actually brought stuff was Kenny Olson, and he came in with that massive.
Nobody
banger.
brought cookies.
Yeah.
You think somebody would brought cookies or pizza or something for
Well,
you?
we didn't have Don Mulhern.
Yeah,
So
Don
there was
Mulhern-
Nobody to bring cookies.
That's right.
Yeah, we didn't. We never did get him on the podcast. Although that would be a good one to have.
It would be.
Yeah,
Would have
that'd be
been
a really
great.
good one to have.
Would have been great.
Yeah.
And then a digital storytelling class, so COM 304, where they just take their phones out. I shouldn't say just take their phones out, but everybody has one, right? But doing it in a journalistic style. So a lot of news organizations have their reporters using, obviously, social media, but then gathering it, audio and video and things like that with their phones. So I love it. So I do the news, and I had taught the COM 110 introduction communication classes.
I think I spoke in that one, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. So you brought up social media. Is that the biggest sweeping change that you've seen?
Well, it changes every
across
day,
media?
John. There's new platforms, there's new names, there's absolutely, and it will continue to change. And I tell class that I said what we're talking about now could be next year. That phone might be upgraded or downgraded or no longer available. So yeah, social media is definitely what the organizations are using to promote, not only to promote their work, but then to engage the audience. That's the other thing is what's the audience talking about? What's the city of Superior, what's going on, and here's the big story in Superior, and so maybe they'll follow up or get more information. And then contact sources. Sometimes sources only give out their information on social media.
Sure.
So that way they control the message. So you have to be there or have to have somebody present at that. And the Promethean does have, they're available on all the platforms. So Twitter, obviously, well now called X, Facebook,
Yeah, you got to
Instagram,
change that little
YouTube.
icon right there. That
Yeah.
bird is dead now.
Yeah, there should be an X there.
I don't control the content, so I will point that out to the staff. There's one member of the staff here that can maybe relay that.
Yep, YouTube.
Yeah, the YouTube
Instagram.
is pretty cool because that's where they put the Promethean podcasts. We do podcasts and also TV newscasts. So absolutely, it's changing. And then now I have a new role, as you both know, with KUWS. So I love that. Love working, getting the students hands-on. One of the students in this class was already a guest on the podcast today. So getting them introduced to radio, and hopefully they love it like we have, because you've done radio,
Yep.
I've done radio, you of course still doing radio. Well, you all do radio.
Yep.
All on KUWS. So
Yep.
I'm just lucky. There's a lot of stories here on campus in this community, and I'm lucky to help.
It's kind of
school.
Gone full circle for you, too, going back into the radio thing now. And it's obviously a very different beast from when you were at WDSM, but still obviously just as much fun. And
what won't change is the local stories, right? There's still these stories of these student athletes. These not even just student athletes, these students. Some are involved in music here, some are in theater, doing amazing work. And you're right, storytelling's not going to go away. The publication, the platforms might change, but somebody's going to be telling that story of who wants to run for a local office, or if a rule or regulation is going to change in our community. Somebody's got to tell that story, right? Somebody's got to be able to communicate that to the community. So to me, local journalism has always meant the most to me right here. Because I want to know what's going on with my neighbors, what's happening in my community.
And that's basically why we do what we do. I mean, that's essentially what this podcast is. I mean, we focus on UWS athletics, obviously, but it is. I mean, that's still a local angle. I mean, we're not, branching out too far. But the stories don't. I would agree that the stories change. The stories do not change. Excuse me. The stories are always going to be there. Delivery mode might change a little bit, but the biggest thing that and I think all three of us.
QR code.
QR code. I mean, there's no such thing as a QR code back in the day. Like this is this is brand new. But the larger point here is that accessibility has really increased. Yeah. And it used to be that you would have a newscast or you would have a radio program, and that was it. That was the only way you could get your information about whether it was local, national, or otherwise. Now there's a million different ways you can get the information that you're looking for, whether it be on Facebook, X, Instagram, YouTube, anywhere.
TikTok, don't forget TikTok.
TikTok, yeah. I mean, all of this stuff.
Well, it's still with us, right?
Yep. Who knows whether it's going to be there next week or not? Who knows? But the delivery modes are now much more accessible. People are now there's more information that can be shared more quickly.
Content.
Yes, exactly. And there's more content creators now. So it's become a much different field than when either of the three of us have got into it at the beginning. So we're a very visual society. In case you guys haven't noticed, I'm sure you all have. But we rely on being able to see things quickly now in today's society, and that's what this is really all about. Back in the old days, you would have to wait.
And the Masters, though, no phones.
Yep.
Last weekend they had the Masters, no phones. No mobile phones, no cell phones.
Awesome. Right. Yeah.
Just so you could zero in and be present at that.
Yeah, at the actual event. So, but the delivery systems have really changed. That's the biggest thing I think that's changed in my lifetime. When I started out, it was literally you were still on dial-up when you were broadcasting on the radio station. Now that's a thing of the past. There's no such thing as dial-up anymore. It's completely gone.
You would actually sit down at the typewriter.
Yes.
And type out
your
weekly notes that you would mail.
Put it in the mail.
To the papers.
Yes, exactly.
And that was
remember when the fax machine came out?
Fax them, and at the newsroom, the fax machine just would never stop. I always run out of paper.
Fax machines were a thing back then. So everything would be faxed in. If you got, and everything was handwritten. You didn't have all of this, extra technology. Microsoft Word was not a thing. I'll just say that.
The internet was not.
Yeah, the internet was not a thing yet. So you're talking to three guys who basically came out in the dinosaur age of media.
And have adjusted.
There was no AI for us to write.
No, there was no AI. Nothing did anything for us to do it all.
Yeah, card catalog.
You had to use the card catalog.
Well, even like developing your own film. When you took a picture, for instance, that was not a thing. This digital media idea, now that we have like with these cameras, this was not a thing back in the day. No. I mean, if you were going to do something like this, the cameras were huge. It was basically on a TV set in order to get anything visual. That was the only way you were going to do it, or unless you were at a game and you had the cameras with you. But this whole new kind of age of the smaller, camera that can do the same things that a huge camera used to have to do is completely new. So this is one of the things that we've seen kind of evolve in each of our careers, is just how the technology has really come a long way, and that's a big part of today's day and age. In terms of, but the stories, like Tom said, are still there, regardless of how you're getting, whatever, equipment you use or what platform you use. That's the bigger point, is that stories are there and they deserve to be told.
And there's a lot of them here in town and on campus.
I know we're kind of up against it because we are in a class setting here today. So take over, talk to your class. How do you want this to go?
Wow, you guys are the hosts.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah, their assignment.
They're not going to take directions from us.
Their assignment was to watch one of the past Eye of the Swarm shows.
Okay.
And ask a couple of questions. And so I did highlight, I guess ironically, the two shows I have been on. But I did show them the whole list of all 6 seasons, or 5 seasons, because you're in the 6th season.
We're in the
right?
6th
We're in the
right
6th
now.
season right now.
The
yeah.
5 seasons. So I didn't know which one they picked. I left it up to them. But they're all supposed to come up with 2 questions for you two.
Okay.
So these are multimedia journalism students in multimedia journalism class. So they've been to the radio station, they're in the TV station. Some of them are going to be even a major or minor in it. And yeah, so they're going to talk to you about careers or this podcast or the Eye of the Swarm. So
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Is that mic on, Holden? Okay. Who's first?
This is Ellie. So if you could introduce yourself there, Ellie.
Hello, I'm Ellie Evenson. Nice to meet you all.
Nice to meet you.
Hello.
I was wondering, what sparked your passion for starting Eye of the Swarm?
That's a good question.
That's a really good question.
It's a good
Stay there.
question.
There might be a follow-up. Hold on.
There
hold
could-
on.
yeah, you might come up with a follow-up question. This was kind of born out of the. I'm going to take a bit of a slap at local media here. Sorry, Tom, but this
Him not included.
This was kind of born out of the fact that we have a really hard time getting coverage for our teams and our athletes in the local media. They will typically show up on a game day, but how many times has he said there are stories to be told? And they don't necessarily want to cover those stories if you are not playing at UMD or you are not at a local high school. You kind of get lost in the shuffle. Part of that is time is tight on a newscast on TV. You've got sportscast, 3.5 minutes?
Yeah.
If you're
Yep.
lucky.
6 o'clock, it was 2.5.
Yeah, so, and you got to cram a lot of stuff into that, and there's only so many pages they can offer in a local newspaper, and there's certain obligations they have to professional sports teams, to UMD, the high schools, and then the next thing you know, the local auto racing and bowling, and the next thing you know, you're right below the local pool scores. So it was sort of the how do we generate our own content? How do we create this? And it started with, well, there's this newfangled thing called the podcast.
Yep.
And so let's give this a whirl. And so we just started doing it. But it was born out of an idea that we need coverage. We have good stories here. We're winning championships here. We got teams going to the NCAA tournaments here. And nobody's talking about it. How do we fix that? And that's where it came from. And then I just kind of told him, you're doing it with me.
Yeah. Well, I'd say he was a little more diplomatic. John and I have had a working relationship now for a long time. We've known each other a long time. We've known Tom a long time. Podcasts were just starting to become a thing when we started this out. They were starting to become a little bit more. Now everybody seems like has one. But when we started out with this was sort of, I don't want to say it was aspirational, because we really didn't know what it was going to be when we started. We were kind of flying by the seat of our pants, to borrow a phrase. But John asked me, because we talked about it. Most of the decisions we make in terms of our programming are things we talk about during the summer, and because that's when we really can kind of bite off what our plans are going forward. And he called me one day in June and said, "How do you feel about the possibility of you and me hosting a podcast?" And I said, "I'm all in. I'm fine with it." Because it was becoming a way we were trying to, at that point, as a department, as a athletic department, trying to find ways to market our athletes a little bit more beyond not just the whole, the local media kind of not giving us our due, we felt like. There was also the idea that, we want to do something that's groundbreaking, something that kind of sells our school and sells our students and their stories a little bit more. And it gives the community, for lack of a better term, an idea and a kind of a way to get to know the athletes and the coaches in a way that doesn't just involve, us doing play-by-play for a game. Again, it's the storytelling side of it. So when he brought it up, and I said, "Yeah, I'm fully in on that."
So he didn't tell you the whole story, and we only got 6 minutes, so I'd like to get a couple more students involved. He axed me from the program because I was the Eye of the Swarm highlight show? What was the name of the show again?
Oh, the buzz.
The Buzz. I was the host
Yes.
of the
Again,
Buzz.
everything has to be
for a couple
Buzz-related.
seasons.
Yes,
For a
yes,
couple
that's true.
seasons, and then I was not asked to be the host of the Buzz anymore because the podcast came about,
No, that's,
which is fun.
Yeah.
Which is fine.
Yeah.
You're a busy
I
guy,
wasn't offended. It was fun to do for a couple.
We did
years,
have the
actually.
buzz though, we would get it for like halftime and stuff during some games.
Oh,
We
yeah.
would get,
Yeah.
like the idle clips. So
Oh, cool.
that helped me a
Yeah.
lot because I could take a bathroom
Absolutely.
break.
Yeah.
When I was
you
at halftime,
guys have done a
breaks.
great job.
Yeah.
I do miss it a little bit, but yeah. Thank you. Was there a follow up there, Ellie, or no?
That was
Okay.
Okay.
We only have 6 minutes left in class, so Cheyenne, go right ahead.
Can either of you, even including Tom, I guess, explain to us or describe the most diverse team or athlete that you have ever encountered or covered in your stories?
Ooh. That's pretty deep from Cheyenne.
We've got some really interesting athletes on this campus that have come from really interesting backgrounds.
I'll sit back and enjoy this.
I can go if you.
Yeah, go. I mean,
because I think for me, it was probably Malibe.
okay, yep.
Because he was from Guinea. He was a soccer player. He was from Guinea, and right, Guinea.
Yeah.
Yeah. And while he was here, he became a naturalized citizen. He got his green card and everything. So he was going through that whole process to gain citizenship while he was a student here.
Yeah.
And I just thought his experience that he was going through and the road that he had traveled in his life was amazing. And it was vastly different from so many of the athletes that we do cover here. Being a soccer player, it is a more diverse roster than we do have for a lot of our teams. There is a lot of international flavor on that team. And he was kind of in that first wave of the international players that came in and played here.
He was.
And so it was a different ingredient than we had experienced.
Yeah, he was, and I covered the soccer team, so I knew Malibe very well. He was very soft-spoken.
Very.
Very soft-spoken. He was one of those guys that took some time to kind of get him to open up a little bit, but he was a very interesting guy. He had lived an interesting life. He had come to the States. He actually originally, when he came to the States, he went to the Twin Cities, where he played his high school soccer, and he played there, and he was either an all-conference or all-region or all-state player when he was there. And then he came to UWS because he met Coach Mooney. And one of the things that Joe really does well, Coach Mooney, is he does relate well with the international idea. So he's had players on his team from all over the globe. We've had players that have come from England to Africa to Brazil to Colombia. We've had Swedes on the team. So it's a very diverse cultural experience, and it is something that those guys take pride in. So the fact that they do have a very rich, diverse roster in terms of people coming from all over the globe that have had different backgrounds, but they all have come together on the soccer team and have put together some really good teams and have really created some really lifelong friendships through that. So it's a really interesting thing. Malibe, I would definitely agree, is right up there.
Quickly, can you spell that name?
Boy, that's a tough one.
Good job, Cheyenne.
It is
We'll do it after. We only have a couple minutes left. But
M-U-G-A-G-L-I-B-E, I believe.
See.
And the last name was Keita, K-E-I-T-A.
Yeah.
I-B-E.
After the podcast signature.
Yep.
Yeah.
Or maybe it was
We only have a couple minutes left. And,
M-U-A-L-I-G-B-E.
Yeah.
I think.
and a lot of them have had different stories. The Ukraine one, wasn't there a hockey player from Ukraine too?
Artie was Ukrainian. Artie Turchiev, he's Ukrainian, and he had been living in the U.S. and Canada for a while, but his family was still over there when the war started.
Yeah. Wow.
And so he got a call from his uncle basically saying, we're not allowed to leave the country. I'm going to have to go and fight in the war. I'll talk to you later. And that was basically the extent of it.
Yeah.
And they went weeks without hearing from his grandparents, from aunts and uncles, because there was no phone service or anything over there. But yeah, that was right around the time the war started back in 2022. So yeah, he was an interesting story too.
But that's just a snapshot.
Yeah, that's just a snippet.
Yeah, there's a lot. Right now, we have athletes on campus that are worth that.
Yep.
Have those kind of stories. Yeah.
We have time for maybe 1-2 more questions. We'll follow up on Cheyenne, get that information. Here's Patrick. Patrick.
Do you enjoy the sports side more or the podcasting side more of this job, I guess?
Sports side, 100%.
Yeah. I mean,
The podcast is a byproduct of that.
yeah,
But
it's an extension of what we do. But the play-by-play stuff is really
I
where
just- we all have a sports background, and it's how we were raised. It's what we're interested in. So I think it's always going to be the sports side of things.
Yeah, I mean, the podcast is different just because it's more of a kind of a summation of everything that we're doing all week. But yeah, I would agree. I really look forward to game day. Game day is where that's the most fun because you get to see the athletes actually in action, get to see them compete, and the podcast is more of just kind of a way to keep to add a little more human interest story to it.
Yep.
Yep.
Nate?
I think we got to get you guys in the booth on 18 green. What are your guys' thoughts on that one? Make it a little more interesting. You guys could be like the Jim Nantz
great
of
idea.
the Namaji Invitational.
It's not as far-fetched as you think, because
No.
we had the first conversation probably 2 or 3 years ago about how in the world can we stream that event. And I don't know how we would do it. And it would be really hard because we just don't have the cameras, the resources to be able to watch as much as they do at Augusta.
Logistically, it's
I can see Holden in the back of the room kind of already gritting his teeth like that is never going to happen. It is way too hard.
It's simple.
All of that said, I would love the chance to channel my inner Jim Nantz.
All right.
I would
So
love
maybe
it.
the students, the future Com 330 students, could do a radio call. Thanks, you, Nate.
There you go.
And
Got an idea for your next class.
yeah, we'll do that.
Yeah.
We can do the audio side, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It'd be
Let's-
awesome.
let's
The biggest
do it.
problem is
It'd
that
be a blast.
we would need multiple cameras.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Yeah.
About 40 of them.
Yeah.
No. Just you can use a laptop for crying out loud. On
We
18
could.
green?
But how are you going to be able to track everything that's going on, Tom?
Well, he
How
said
can I-
18th green.
Right, that's where we'll be stationed, but how can I see Nate's
Well, that's
awesome
true.
eagle putt on 6?
That's right. Well,
Yeah.
You got the scorecard. You just got to tell the story.
Yeah. We could just talk about it on the.
start at the
There's a
green,
rumor that
then
Nate
work-
Burke
you know,
just had an
the next
eagle.
year, then you work at the T-box.
There's a rumor going around the golf course that Nate just hit an eagle. Like that would be, because that's the only way we could be able to
But
confirm.
we'd only
it.
do it on sunny and 70-degree days.
Yes,
So
yes.
that'd
That's
be-
the other. That
There's
would be
the
the other
weather
issue.
component to that
Yes,
whole thing.
That's the other thing.
All right, we're almost, believe it or not, class is almost over with, so we have time for one quick question for those who have Lily and Mace that haven't. Lily's right there. Go ahead, Lily.
So I don't really know what I want to do with my career yet. I know I want it to be something with sports. So what were your guys' majors and minors?
You want me to go first?
Go right ahead, because mine takes a while.
Yeah, his is a little more complicated. I went to St. Olaf College for undergrad, and I got my degree in English. Because they did not have a journalism program while I was there, but I did write for the school newspaper for what would have been the St. Olaf version of the Promethean for 4 years, and so that was where I got my background in. Then I came to UWS several years later, about 7 or 8 years after I got my first job out of college. I was lucky; I got my first job right out of school, and then I came back to UWS and I got my master's degree in speech communication. And while I was here, that's when I got into the broadcasting side of things for UW Superior. So. That's my background. John's is a little more involved, though.
Yeah, mine was a little different. I had no idea. I had no clue what I wanted to do. I mean, honestly, even when I was going through my academic program, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I originally started as a business major. I wasn't loving that, wasn't hating it, but wasn't loving it. Decided I wanted to do something maybe medical. And so I was studying optometry for a couple of years in there.
I did not know that.
Yeah, I was actually a biology major for a little bit there, and then you had to take chemistry classes, and me and chemistry didn't mix. It was not a fun thing, and I walked out of that, and it was like Chem 200. It's
Yeah, it wasn't-
basic level
yeah.
stuff, and I'm walking out of there going, oh my God, I can't do this. So I changed my major again to undecided, to take a semester and try to figure all this out. And all of this is happening. I'm still only a sophomore. And a buddy of mine on the hockey team said, well, you're kind of a sports guy and you're a stat guy. And that was true, because when I was a kid, I would read sports books and I loved stats. I would get up and I'd grab the paper and start rattling through box scores and looking at, I want to know what the North Stars did. I want to know who's leading the league in scoring besides Wayne Gretzky. I want to know all this other stuff that's going on. And it's like, yeah, I am kind of a stats guy. This kind of works. And he goes, well, I'm an individually designed major, sports management. Here I am. Here's my program. And I went, that's the one. I'm going to do that. And so did that, started writing for the Promethean, started working in the sports information office. I was on the stat crew just like you. And it resonated. But I still wasn't sure that that's what I was going to do. So I graduated, started working on my master's right then in communications. Here, yep. Everything was here except for my very first semester at college. And things kind of changed because at that time then I was thinking, okay, I got my sports management degree. I kind of want to get into the coaching thing. So at the time, you pretty much were master's required to get any kind of a college coaching job. So that was going to be the direction I was going to go. And I was helping out with the hockey team, and we were sitting in coach's office after a Thursday practice, and Jon Munson, who was running the radio station, called the coach's office, and I remember it vividly. Coach answers the phone, and none of you know who Coach Nelson was, but he was very direct and very concise. And he grabs the phone. He never said hello. It was just, yeah, okay, yes. Phone down. Looks at me and goes, you're on the radio tomorrow. Okay. Okay. And so John was the play-by-play guy, and he gave me, I was going to be the analyst, and that was fine. That was easy enough. And then we get to February, and John goes, I got a problem. I'm in a play. So we don't have anybody who can do play-by-play here. And I'm going, oh, boy. All right. So then Brad Hotchkiss, if you're watching this, thank you. He was our basketball play-by-play guy, and we were playing a Tuesday night game at Augsburg. Brad came down on the road trip with us, and he was taking the second period to try to learn hockey, which, just step in and try to learn hockey in one game. And it
doesn't happen.
And it was rough.
Doesn't happen.
It was a rough go. So that game gets done. Thursday, I walk into Jon Munson's office, and I say, if Brad struggles tomorrow, can I take a crack at this? And he goes, yeah, sure, go ahead. So Friday night, February 2nd, 1999. Bemidji State's in town. We're playing Bemidji, which is always, things are always ramped up like 12 different levels when Bemidji was in town. And Brad's doing the first period, and it's
not great.
It's
not good.
The car is on fire. And so we get to the first intermission, and I said, Brad, I'm gonna take the second period. Let me take a crack at this. And he goes, oh, thank God, I can't do this. This hockey stuff is too hard. The guys are jumping on the ice all the time, and at basketball, you sub, and I know everybody. These guys are flying all over the place. I can't do this. And I took the second period, and 600 games later, we're still doing it. It was just ducking water, and it was just a natural. So all of that is happening. I'm still doing my graduate program, and I was fortunate to get a job with the United States Hockey League, and that was where it finally clicked with me that the business side of sports is what I want to do. So very, very long answer to a very simple question.
And I always wanted to do radio or TV. Didn't think I'd ever get a chance to do it, and still doing it. And just follow your passions. If you something, you want to do something, go ahead and do it. Don't let anybody stop you. Don't let anybody say no.
Because I started out in print. I was a sports writer for 7 years for a daily newspaper in Wisconsin. And then I just wasn't happy with the direction of my career. UWS had the program I was looking for, my master's. Came here. I had never done any play-by-play broadcasting at all when I got here. And I got thrown in the deep end of the pool by the same combo, Jon Munson and Steve Nelson. And it was literally a conversation that went like this. It went, Steve Nelson, again, how you feel about being our basketball play-by-play guy? I've never done play-by-play. You'll be fine. Okay. Great, you're hired. I was like, okay. Jon Munson, then he talked to me and he said, I've been doing this for 30 years. I don't really have the time or the energy to train you how to do it, so I'm just going to throw you on the air and we'll see how you do. Threw me in the deep end of the pool. He was fine whether I sank or swim, and I was able to swim. He said in my ear at halftime, pretty good. Come in, we'll set a schedule for you. And I said, all right. And now it's 15 years later, and Jon Munson has now retired, Steve Nelson has now retired, and we're both still here. So
but they can't be here anymore because class is over. So,
but yeah, shoot your shot is all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
Along that line, the one piece of advice I'll give you, because we're all three in local media, we're not doing this to get rich.
No.
If you are looking to do something for the money, you are doing it for the wrong reason.
Especially in this field.
Yep.
Fun. If you want to have some fun,
you're going to enjoy it. You're going to get to work in sports, and it's a good life and a good way to go.
Yep.
All right, class, let's show appreciation for everybody here, Holland and John. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, John.
You're welcome.
I suppose we can wrap up then?
Yeah.
That'll do it for this episode of Eye of the Swarm. We want to thank Tom Hansen. We want to thank all of his class as well. Again, COM 330.
Yeah,
Make
COM
sure I got the
330.
number right.
Yep.
For coming by today. Always a fun one when we get to have everybody here. So for the class, for Tom, for the big sound Matt Johnson, I am Jon Garver, and this has been Eye of the Swarm.